I just wanted to mention that when you submit the questions, they are not lost. Because of the time constraint, we may not be able to address all those questions, but all of your questions, that's the good thing of doing electronically, they are going into the data bank. And we are going to follow up with each of the speaker and then sort of edit frequently asked questions or FAQs over there, and they will be posted on the NJPFAS-PIC website. So it's worth asking questions here because that will help us in putting together the strategic direction for the Partnership Innovation Consortium for the PFAS. So you set the tone, and it is a very good segue for the last remark that you do for the next fireside chat session. So it's my great honor and pleasure to invite the speakers of the fireside chat session, Senator Linda Greenstein. By the way, all the biographical sketches are printed in the booklet, and they are also posted on the website. So, you know, in the interest of the time, I'm not going through all the bios, so please read them. Assemblywoman Lisa Swain. Mayor Paul Viginos. Andrew Caricom. Mayor Paul is from the village of Ridgewood, New Jersey, and Andrew Caricom is the managing director with Moonshot Missions and co-chair of the Jersey Water Works Steering Committee. And we do not have the pleasure of having Kendra Morris with us, Chief Executive Officer of Veolia Regulated Water Businesses North America. Unfortunately, she's not feeling well, so on your behalf and on my behalf, we send our best wishes for a fast recovery. We are going to have someone, I forgot where that note is, to join in place of Kendra. Mike? Jim, please join us. Could you shortly introduce yourself? Because I don't have your name.
Yeah, my name is Jim Estropoulos. I'm the Vice President of Stakeholder Affairs.
Thank you so much. And we have the pleasure of having Larry Gottlieb. So thank you so much for joining us. And I would like to go the first round of the question and request to share your vision and your thoughts on us on this particular topic. And I have drafted specific questions for you. To Senator Greenstein, the PFAS has become a widespread environmental and public health concern, and everyday consumer products are one of the most common ways these chemicals continue to enter our communities. You and Senator Bob Smith recently sponsored a legislation banning the intentional addition of PFAS substances in consumer products, requiring specific notices for products containing the substances. Please share your vision and thoughts on improving the PFAS awareness in our communities and how the legislative efforts can be implemented to protect our society and environment from PFAS exposures.
Thank you. Thank you, Adam, and thank you for the opportunity to speak on this issue today. As you mentioned, PFAS, or forever chemicals, are commonly used substances, and while they have useful and important properties in some applications, They also pose serious environmental and public health challenges, as we've heard about this morning. For example, research has shown that exposure to PFAS is linked to cancer, reproductive effects, and reduced stability of our immune systems. Last session, we passed the Protecting Against Forever Chemicals Act to protect the residents of New Jersey. When we apply cosmetics that contain PFAS, walk on carpets, or use fabrics treated with PFAS, and eat foods that were packaged in materials that contain PFAS, we have direct exposure to PFAS. This increases the risk of the health impacts associated with PFAS. Our law touches on three important issues: exposure and risk reduction, education, and source reduction. First, to reduce exposure and reduce the associated health risks of PFAS, the law will ensure that harmful PFAS chemicals are removed from key products that people interact with daily. Next, the law sets up a framework for public education on the presence and impact of PFAS. It requires cookware products that contain it to be labeled and directs the DEP to set up a public awareness and education campaign about the risks of PFAS. Finally, the law helps to reduce PFAS in the state at the source. PFAS cleanup for the state's water, as we've just heard about, and soil resources is an ongoing conversation in the state. As we continue to find solutions to removing PFAS from water and soil, we need to ensure that we do not continue to contaminate these resources. Prevention is far more effective and less costly than remediation. I also co-sponsored a bill that you've heard a little bit about this morning with Senator Singleton in 2023 to phase out the use of PFAS-containing firefighting foam and set up a program for the DEP and the Department of Consumer Affairs to help local governments replace their supply with PFAS-free firefighting foam. Again, a PFAS law aiming to reduce exposure and cut contamination at the source. While this law sets a foundation for New Jersey to start addressing PFAS issues in key consumer goods and in our state's resources, there is still so much work to be done. So I'm very glad that all of you are going to be contributing to that. As we continue to discuss solutions for removing these chemicals and the costs of removal, we need to ensure that we provide support to businesses and utilities to navigate new standards, help businesses and other organizations find ways to reduce the use of PFAS substances, and ensure residents and other organizations like schools have targeted educational resources to learn what PFAS are and why they are a problem, where PFAS can be found, and how they can be avoided. So I look forward to seeing the legislature assist all of you in any way possible, and we're glad that we've made this really good start. And congratulations to NJIT on the great work that you're doing on this. Thank you.
Thank you. Assemblywoman Swain, as you have sponsored several bills aimed at regulating forever chemicals, including limits PFAS on menstrual products. You spoke about that in the last workshop. Protecting Against Forever Chemicals Act and firefighting foam ban. Please share your vision and ongoing efforts in reducing and managing the PFAS exposure in products. What type of new policies, regulation, and standards would be required to address healthcare concerns caused by the PFAS exposures?
Thank you and good morning, everyone. I just want to start off by saying I'm so privileged to be here. Thank you, NJIT, for having this, for hosting this, inviting us. But also, you may hear some overflow because the senator and I have worked on a lot of this legislation together, and I'm really happy for her partnership. And I also wanted to mention that Assemblywoman Chama Hader is here in the audience, and the three of us have worked on legislation together. So that's how committed we are and how seriously we take the whole issue of PFAS contamination. So I think it's really important that we start at the source by reducing and ultimately phasing out PFAS across the manufacturing supply chain, not just in the final product, and making sure there's real transparency about where these chemicals are being used. You know, you'll all remember years ago, we knew nothing. And then all of a sudden, you know, it was a big to-do. We had ingredients on food labels. So a big focus for me is getting the PFAS out of everyday products, the products that we actually come in contact with in our bodies, not just inside, but what our bodies are touching. So things like menstrual products. I know when I first heard about this, I just couldn't believe that there could be PFAS in menstrual products, but in some cases there are. So that's something that we're obviously looking at, as well as food packaging, textiles, and personal care products like cosmetics. I mean, we all know that PFAS are everywhere and they're in almost everything, but we've got to at least start to get them out of the places where we can. And as you heard before, New Jersey really has been a leader on water quality, but we need to keep pushing by expanding PFAS testing in drinking water. And obviously the challenge is that every time we develop a new test for the contaminants in our water, then we discover new chemicals and we need new testing for that. But we've got to keep working on that, and also with private wells, with our wastewater, and making sure that polluters are held accountable for what they're putting into our water. And lastly, I'd like to say that we need to be clear and we have to have consistent testing and labeling standards for PFAS in consumer products so people can actually understand what they're being exposed to. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So from the state level coming to the community and the city level, and specifically Ridgewood, New Jersey, because I believe that they are on the forefront of the many communities in New Jersey. Mayor Paul, PFAS chemicals, as we have been talking about, are found everywhere around us: soil, water, air, food, and the products we use daily. As the mayor, please share your vision in enhancing PFAS awareness in your community and how local governments and communities can help reducing the PFAS exposure in water, wastewater, and consumable products.
Thank you, and thank you for having me today. And it really is gratifying to see so many interested people from all different aspects of this issue here today, because that's what it's going to take to address this issue over many, many, many decades. This is not a quick fix. I will tell you that in our community, we were led by the DEP and the legislature. And I want to thank all the members of the legislature here today and all the members of the DEP. But most importantly, I want to thank someone you're going to hear from later on today, the director of Ridgewood Water. Ridgewood Water has, we have our own water company and it services for communities in the area. Our director, Rich Calby, in 2019, somehow unbelievably convinced a prior village council that we needed to spend $150 million on a PFAS filtration system that nobody even knew what PFAS was at the time. And so, Rich, I have no idea how you did that, but kudos to you. And because in terms of PFAS awareness, let me tell you, my community knows all about PFAS. They are frighteningly aware of what's going on. And the only way people will become aware is if it's regulated. And so for many years, it wasn't regulated. Up until very recently, it was only regulated in a handful of states. So I'm sure that people in Kansas look at this and say, boy, they got a real problem there in New Jersey. Thank goodness we don't have that problem here. Well, they're going to find out real soon what the problem is. But because of Rich Calby's leadership and the leadership of the legislature and DEP, as Tom said, we're on the forefront. We are almost done with our $150 million filtration project. And I can't tell you how proud I am to just be a part of this, to be a cog in the chain. Until they are going to be regulated, no one is going to know about this. This is not an issue that you know about. It has to affect you. I remember looking at problems that water companies had in Michigan, where they had to bring bottled water in, and other communities, and I'd say, gee, that's a shame that that happens there. Didn't affect me, didn't affect my community, so we didn't know about it. But everyone's going to know soon, because the new federal standards, as everyone here knows, are below the New Jersey standards, which I'm thrilled about. So even communities in New Jersey who thought that they were fine or who didn't realize they had a problem, they're going to find out real soon. And as for what we're going to do about it, Assemblywoman Swain, who has worked with us and has helped us get financing on this, and I want to thank all the members of the legislature for this, because $150 million for a couple of small residential communities is a huge burden. But what we've had to do is what everyone's going to have to do. But as Assemblywoman Swain says, we have to stop this at the source. I was an environmental prosecutor in the 80s, back before anybody was really paying attention to this. I worked for an environmental company, and the precursors of those companies, back before the EPA was born in the 70s, the disposal of waste, whether it was trash or hazardous waste, the way it was done was it was dumped in the rivers, it was dumped in the lakes. We can't even imagine that that was the industry standard. I'll tell you a story that one of the founders of my company told me, that back then they used to go out to Pennsylvania and they'd find a lake. And that lake, they'd buy it. But because the lake was concave, they would fill it with trash until one day the lake was gone. And because they were environmentally conscious, they'd cover it with soil and plant trees on it. Industry standard. We're at an inflection point today with PFAS. When I first heard about this several years ago, I think the number being bandied about was that there were 5,000 PFAS chemicals. 15,000 today. That was only 5 years ago. We're going in the wrong direction. Our legislature is going in the right direction. We have to stop the flow in because we can't filter it out fast enough. And that has to be done at both the state level and at the federal level. And until that gets done, we're going to be dealing with this. Our grandchildren will be dealing with this. We have 100, when I was an environmental prosecutor, we had 106 Superfund sites in New Jersey. I think we still have 106 Superfund sites in New Jersey. They don't get cleaned quickly or easily or cheaply. We have to change course today. Thank you.